Hello everybody, and welcome back to All the Mods 10. In the previous episode, we got started with Iron Spells and Spell Tomes mod, and built this absolutely massive Wizard's Tower. In between episodes, I've just been working on sort of getting everything decorated in here, and actually finished the first floor here. I added the same sort of details with the blue enchanted fences and planks down here on the first floor, added some carpets here, and you'll notice that I've also got some elevators now. I went into the Nether and killed a few of the warped Endermen. You can see on the wall here I do have a statue from killing some of them, and managed to get at least a few Ender Pearls. So we now have elevators that can bring us up to the different floors of the Wizard's Tower. I've also continued working on getting bookshelves in here as well. It is still a bit of a slow process. I don't know if I want to fully complete this side, but I definitely want to get some more bookshelves in here as well. And the floor above that is pretty much completely empty. I don't know what I really want to do in this space yet, but I have gone through and added the fences and the paper lanterns. If we go up one floor further, I did the same here on this level, and this is where we have our scroll forge. By the way, I did add clear glass here as well on some of these floors, and that's just to sort of make it look like this area is in the air but still walkable, like we're walking on air to get into the center. If we go one floor higher, you'll notice that I have actually started working on getting the floor in this area as well, sort of figured out. Again, I still don't know what I'm going to do with all of these spaces, and I'm also pretty low on ironwood. But my storage situation has been really bad recently. I've tried to keep everything sort of sorted out, but yeah, there's so many items in this mod pack that it's kind of hard to keep everything in sort of a few chests. So what I want to do today is actually get started on a new inventory system. And to do that, we're going to get into the Applied Energistics mod. But before we do that, hit the like button and subscribe. It helps the channel out a ton and lets me know that you guys are interested in the videos. If you want to go one step further, why not consider becoming a channel member? It's the best way to support me directly, and you get access to all the videos in this series early. Without any further ado, let's get started with Applied Energistics. Now, there are a few storage mods in this mod pack, namely Applied Energistics 2, as well as Refined Storage. Of the two, I do really like Refined Storage. It's a little bit simpler, and you don't have to deal with the channels, which we'll get to later with Applied Energistics. But I feel like the auto crafting is just not nearly as comprehensive or as useful. And I think overall Applied Energistics 2 is way more customizable. And personally, I think it's actually a little bit easier to deal with in the end game. And Refined Storage, of course, is a little bit simpler for the early game, but I don't really want to transfer storage systems halfway through this series. I just want to stick with Applied Energistics for now. So the first thing that we're going to need for Applied Energistics is a charger as well as an inscriber. The charger will turn Certus quartz crystals into charged Certus crystals, which are useful for pretty much every single block in this mod. The inscriber can be used to turn quartz crystals into dust, but it's also used to turn different sort of ingots and silicon into printed circuits and processors. So the charger and the inscriber both have pretty simple crafting recipes. So here's our charger and the inscriber. So we can go ahead and claim our quest rewards from that. Next up, we're gonna need to find some meteorite. They contain skystone as well as the different inscriber patterns that we're gonna need for the inscriber. So in order to actually track down some meteorites, we're gonna need to place down our charger and place a compass inside. Now the charger is going to need power, which we'll talk about later in this episode. For now, we can use a wooden crank from the Applied Energistics mod as well, and just shift right click that on and hold down right click and that will begin charging the charger. And eventually that'll turn into the meteorite compass. So the meteorite compass will actually point towards the nearest meteorite. Now I do already know where one is. It's just over here to the west, directly west of our base. And because I want to get over there quickly, I'm going to use our Angel Wing spell, as well as some firework rockets to get over there as fast as we can. So I'll just hold the meteorite compass in my offhand. And so now we've actually found the meteorite. And you'll know it's one from Applied Energistics when it's surrounded by skystone. So I'll just go ahead and break all the skystone here. And we see a mysterious cube in the middle here. We can just go ahead and break that. And that'll drop all of the different inscriber presses that we need. Now we're also going to need some Certus quartz. Fortunately, these meteorites do have a little bit of Certus quartz inside of them. So you can just go ahead and break these buds. If you break the budding Certus quartz blocks that are here right now, these will just break, and I can demonstrate that. Oh, it looks like they actually stay now, but they do downgrade to a worse version of itself. I think you used to need Silk Touch to grab those, but we might as well grab them all now. These ones will only grow a little bit, and then they'll basically never grow any more crystals again. But we can put these closer to our base, and that way we just have them handy and growing some quartz for us. So this meteorite actually has a few flawless budding Certus quartz blocks in it. I think there's 2 or 3. These ones will never break. So there's an experiment that I kind of want to try. I don't know if this will work, but it's worth a shot. Basically, I just want to pick these up as a contraption and bring them home to my base. So I'll go ahead and place down a rail, cart assembler, get some more skystone there just for a building block, and we'll just go ahead and try to get these all together. We can even try to take these budding quartz blocks there. And now I'll get a minecart down there and a redstone torch. That does lift it up, nice, and then we can just go ahead and pick it up just like that, nice. So yeah, that completely worked. And I am gonna build a new storage room facility over here. I'm thinking it's gonna be designed sort of as a warehouse. But anyway, so I'm just gonna place my cart assembler down here again. And nice, now these are gonna be inside of loaded chunks at all times. And they'll be close to me. I don't know if they actually do need to be close or not. But if they're close, we can harvest them a little bit quicker. So I think what I want to do, I'll probably honestly just get rid of any of the less than flawless ones here. And maybe separate them out and make sure they're kind of nice looking and each side is exposed. So I've now got an array of these Certus quartz budding and producing more crystals. They're not all flawless. I think only these bottom 5 here are flawless. The rest are various states. Those ones will eventually just turn into the blocks. But they can be at least growing us some crystals while we wait for them to deteriorate. And they can be growing crystals while we work on our new build that I'm going to be placing in the background there. So let's get started on building the warehouse. this is sort of what I came up with for the warehouse. I went pretty basic with the design, just using some bricks of various different types. The main sort of storage part of the warehouse is made out of oak. And then these parts on the side, these gray bits here, sort of are supposed to look like a garage door. These are just using framed panels, so they're only half of a block vertically. And the roof is just made out of deep slate. I did actually go for more of a randomized texture for this, as opposed to the other building over there, which I just used the cobbled deep slate for. So here's what it looks like from the inside. This part is still pretty bland here. This is supposed to be sort of more of the office side of the building. This is where I'm actually going to have my terminal for the storage system. And over here in the warehouse is where I'll have all of the storage. We've got plenty of room for as many storage containers as we can possibly get. And to actually store all of our items, we're going to be using item vaults from the Create mod. But before we can even get started on our applied energistics system, we gotta talk about our power situation. In this mod pack, there are a ton of different ways to actually generate power. We could use generators from the Generator Galore mod. We could dive into Mechanism and get into that sort of branch of technology where we could do solar panels and turbines. And we could even get even more complicated by using actual like biogenerators or even gas burning generators. Even the RF Tools mod has power generator. However, for this, I'm thinking we should just stick with what we already have. We're already generating power with our water wheel. This water wheel is already powering this side of the base, so why not just make it power the storage system as well? Now, the Create mod by default does not have any way of actually generating power for different systems because it only generates rotational energy, which is basically only used by the Create mod. Pretty much every other mod that requires power in this mod pack is going to require FE, which I believe stands for flux energy, but I'm not 100% certain. Fortunately for us though, we do have a add-on in this mod pack called the Create Crafts and Additions mod, and this adds a ton of different sort of blocks that we can actually use to convert power into rotational energy and vice versa, using the electric motors and alternators. So the materials for the alternator is going to be pretty simple. We're just going to need a ton of iron plates, some copper spools, capacitors, and iron rods. Copper spools are just made with 4 copper wires and an empty spool, and you can get copper wires from a variety of different methods. This one, for example, turns copper plates into copper wire using the rolling machine, but we could also just use the engineer's wire cutters, which is probably a lot more simple than building the rolling machine. One problem we are going to face as well is that we actually need a mechanical crafter. Mechanical crafters are a multi-block that allow you to basically make larger recipes than the default 3x3 crafting grid. So as you can see with this one, we have the 3x3 plus 1, 2, 3 on the side. So I'm going to get started crafting our mechanical crafters. For these, we're going to need electron tubes, brass casings, and crafting tables. Overall, really not too bad of a recipe, but we are going to need to make, I think, 4 of these crafts. So because this is a Create machine, I am going to put it inside of the Create workshop here. So I'll just fill out the 3x3 grid first. Then we needed one on the side there, one on top, and one to the left. There are other configurations for the mechanical crafter as well. I believe most recipes can get up to a 5x5 of this. So eventually we will probably completely fill this out, but this is all we need for now. So now we just need to hook up some power to this. So I'm just going to place a couple of cogs below. It does need a cog connection at any part basically of the mechanical crafter. So we can now pull the power from this cog wheel and pull it back this way, and it'll connect up to our power that already exists over here. And hopefully this won't actually stop our system. It probably will though. Yep, just as I just as I expected. So we've got a few options here. We could slow down the entire system, and let's see how slow we would actually need to go. 32 works. 64 works, okay. 86. 96. Okay. 112 breaks. 108. 108 is broken. 102 works. 106. Okay. So it looks like 102 is the fastest we can go. I think I'm okay with that speed for now. What I was gonna do, and probably will still have to do, is just re-add these large water wheels. These would be purely for performance, and yeah, I really wouldn't use them as decoration for this, so we'd probably just put them in here somewhere, probably before the rotation speed controller. Maybe in here. This could be a good place for it. But we don't really need to worry about that right now. What we do need to worry about is getting all of the mechanical crafters facing in the same direction. So the way these work is if you place an item in here and it starts to craft, the item will follow these sort of belts that are in between each of the mechanical crafters. So we just need to make sure that they all eventually end up in the same location. Something like that. So those will go there. So if we put these, yep, in the middle there, I think that's all lined up now. So for the alternator, we are going to need some iron plates. First though, I want to craft the iron rod, which is pretty simple. It's just going to be 2 iron ingots. Here we go. And we do get 4 out of that. So now to make the capacitor, we're going to need a zinc plate, a copper plate, and a redstone torch. Just like that, and I believe that's everything that we need for the alternator. Alright, so we can place the zinc at the top, the iron plates all around the sides, copper spools in an upside down V, I believe the iron rod in the middle, and the capacitor at the bottom. So that'll start crafting up. I did mess that up a little bit. Let's see. If it goes down like that, there we go. Sweet, we have our alternator now. So to power our various machines, we are going to need a connector. This will allow us to basically add a wire between our power source and the machines on the other end. So we can craft that with just an andesite alloy, copper rod, and any sort of slime. So we can go ahead and test this out, and I'm just going to temporarily add it to my system, and it immediately overstressed. So for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to disconnect the entire system, place our alternator down, which is overstressing it still, which is kind of interesting. Let's see how slow it has to go. Let's try 32. 32 is about half, so probably 64 is the max that an alternator can do. So you'll see on the Wayla at the top, it is full of power. So we can use the connector and just place that down there. And I just have the charger from AE here, so I'll place that down as well. Place this connector on this side, and then with a copper spool, we'll connect it to there. So the charger has immediately started storing power, and we don't need to manually charge it anymore. All right, so I've spent a little bit of time rearranging things down here in our power generation room. I've added a ton of water wheels. I hate this solution, but for now that's what we're gonna have to go with. I created another rotation speed controller, and that's just spinning at 64 RPM, going directly into the alternator. So to get power over to our storage room, I'm gonna just be using energy pipes from the pipes mod. So I'm gonna have to run these all the way over to where our storage room is. So I think I'll eventually have some sort of maintenance room here inside of the storage house, where we can sort of keep track of our power and everything in the storage. For now though, I'm just gonna bring the power all the way up to here. Now there is already a little bit of an area down below here. So I've just dug this path all the way from our workshop, and now it's time to get the pipe all the way over here. And I think that's a pretty good position for where we can actually start building our applied energistics system. Speaking of which, I think it's probably about time that we start working on crafting some of our components. So starting off, we're gonna need to start building towards the ME controller. To actually build the controller, we're gonna need skystone blocks, Plxgue crystals, and an engineering processor. So to get the engineering processor, we're going to need to use the inscriber to craft 3 different components. Or 2, I should say. We're going to need the printed engineering circuit as well as printed silicon. To get the printed engineering circuit, we basically just need to inscribe a diamond inside of the inscriber using the inscriber engineering press. Fortunately, we did find one of those while exploring and gathering our materials from the meteorites. And I think I'm just going to place all of our applied energistics machines down here in the basement, since we already have power coming through here. So these machines will automatically connect to the pipes mod. So like I said, we're just going to need the engineering press as well as a diamond inside of the inscriber, and that should begin to actually start going, although I seem to be having some troubles with this. And I think my issue was probably that I forgot to actually set the energy pipe to actually output the power. So hopefully that fixed it. And by the way, the create wrench does also work on that, which is pretty handy to know. And yep, looks like we have power now. So we can go ahead and place our diamond inside, as well as find our engineering press again. And this is going to take a little while. It actually is faster than I thought it would be. But there we go. We have our first printed engineering circuit. Now we're also going to need the, let's see if I can remember what it's called, the printed silicon. And to get printed silicon, we actually need the silicon press, which we have right here in our inventory, and we can just place our silicon inside. By the way, to get silicon, all you need to do is smelt quartz. Nether quartz specifically. And you can also do Certus quartz dust. Now that we have these 2 components, we can actually place them inside the inscriber as well with a piece of redstone, and that'll actually start to make the actual processor itself. We're also going to need to make the other 2 processors in this mod, the calculation processor and the logic processor. They're made in a similar manner to the engineering processor, though the logic processor requires gold, and I believe the calculation processor requires Certus quartz. So we made our printed calculation circuit with an inscriber calculation press with a piece of Certus quartz crystal. And here's our printed logic circuit, both of which can be combined into our calculation process and logic processor respectively. And there is our processor's quest completed. So in order to actually interact with our storage in a single interface, we're going to need to craft a ME terminal and the ME crafting terminal. The regular terminal is just used to actually access the inventories. The ME crafting terminal allows you to craft with the items within the inventory. So in order to craft the ME terminal, we're going to need an annihilation core, a formation core, another logic processor, and any of the bright, dark, or illuminated panels, which are just crafted like this. We just need iron, glowstone, redstone, and quartz glass. Quartz glass is just Certus quartz mixed with regular glass. By the way, while I'm sort of working on getting some of these other components crafted, I'm actually going to get our, let's see here, there it is, our silicon actually inscribed. We're going to need a lot of this during this mod, so might as well get as many as we can. So one of the major resources in the Applied Energistics 2 mod is Plxgue crystals. These are similar to Certus quartz crystals, and in fact they are actually made with them by combining charged Certus quartz crystals, redstone dust, and nether quartz. And you essentially just throw them into water and that will make Plxgue crystals. And to get charged Certus quartz crystals, all you need to do is place Certus quartz crystals inside of a charger. It'll take a little while to actually convert. Looks like that one did it pretty quickly. But yeah, you can only do it one at a time. It's definitely slow to start off with. So I'll just throw in some nether quartz, redstone dust, and charged Certus quartz. Let me get that nether quartz back in there. And that will actually produce Plxgue crystals. That's way faster than it used to be. I'm not sure if that's all the mod 10 that changed that, or if it's just the new changes to Applied Energistics. Either way, it is a very much appreciated change. So we're also going to need Plxgue dust. We can just throw our Plxgue crystals into an inscriber and get out Plxgue dust. We could also just throw it in the crushing wheels or in the millstone from create. So now that we have that, we can turn in our quest. Nice. So now we can craft our annihilation cores and our formation cores. We can craft our illuminated panels as well. And with all of that gathered, we can craft our ME terminal. And I'll just immediately upgrade that into a crafting terminal and claim our rewards from that quest. And the quest book wants us to now craft the cables from this mod. So we're going to need to craft some quartz fiber, which we can then turn into our Plxgue ME glass cables. And it looks like these other two are optional, but I'm going to go ahead and do them anyway because I do like the looks of the covered cables and the dense covered cables, which we will need some wool for. So we can now craft the Plxgue ME covered cables, craft 4 of those, make sure they enter the inventory, and just combine 4 of those, and that will create the dense covered version. And there we go. Now this quest is fully finished. So the next quest in this quest book just sort of goes over how channels work in this mod. So the amount of channels that are actually available to you are determined by the type of cable that you're actually using. The standard cables can only carry 8 channels, but the dense version can carry 32 channels. There is also the smart cables, which basically just display the number of channels that are in use. But we really won't have to worry about channels until later in our playthrough, so I'm not even going to cover them right now. But we should now have everything that we need to craft the ME controller. And we can go ahead and place that right on top of our energy pipe. And you'll notice that you do have power when it lights up like that. If you don't have power, it will just be gray. Let's see if I can... No, I think it's going to drain too slowly to show that off, but that's fine. Yeah, it'll go completely gray if you don't have the proper sort of power requirement. Now I'm just going to place one of our covered cables on top of the controller and place our crafting terminal on the side just like that. The crafting terminal does have to be attached to a cable. It cannot be directly on the ME controller. So now we can go ahead and open up our crafting terminal. And this interface has changed a little bit since last I've actually played with this mod. But this sort of box up here is where all of your items will appear when you have items in your inventory. So if you try to put something inside right now, nothing's going to happen. And that's because we actually need somewhere to store the items. The controller really only handles the power, and the crafting terminal is only an interface to show what's inside of the inventory. So there are a couple of different directions that we could go for this. We could create storage disks, which act just like a hard drive in that they'll just keep items inside of them. It's all kept within a single block, and you can contain thousands and thousands of items with them, but they can get pretty expensive. But the direction that I want to go is actually with a storage bus. The storage bus will act as a sort of interface between an inventory and your applied energistics system. So rather than storing your items on disks, you can actually keep them inside of chests. So to craft a storage bus, we are going to need an ME interface, which is just crafted with a formation core, annihilation core, iron ingot, and a couple of glass. Here we go. And we'll also need a couple of pistons. There we go. Here is our first storage bus. So now I just want to create some vaults from the create mod. And the idea is going to be to fill this area back here with item vaults and drawers and basically anything that we need for storage. So just to sort of demonstrate how this works, I'm gonna hook this up via our cables and place our storage bus on the end here. It needs to be facing into the item vault. It should connect on the flat side there. And now when I get my crafting terminal back in place, I can open it up and you'll notice that we can actually store items inside now. These items are actually inside of the item vault, as you can see at the top there, but we can access them from over here. So my idea for this is to use item vaults as sort of our bulk storage. Sort of for the items that we don't necessarily get a lot of, but kind of take up a lot of inventory spaces. And in order to store the items that we're going to have a ton of stacks of, we're actually going to use the functional storage mod, namely the storage controller. And we can actually hook up the storage bus to the storage controller here with a few drawers hooked up next to it. And the nice thing about the storage controller is that it'll automatically sort items into the drawers. So I'll place, let's say, some redstone dust inside. Unfortunately, it looks like it's not letting me. Let me see. Oh, interesting. Uh-oh. So hopefully this still works. Let me try to actually link our drawers up, and now let's see if that'll work. Okay, there we go. Yep, that worked. Oh, that kind of scared me for a bit, because that's sort of the entire point of this design. But yeah, as you can see, as we put items inside the storage, they appear here in the drawers. So I think I'm gonna spend a little bit of time fleshing out our storage system here. I'll probably build a few storage buses, and I'll get everything that we need moved over here from the storage in the create workshop. But I do think that we're completely out of time for this episode, so I'll probably do that in between episodes. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.